Chicago shivered in the sharp winds of November. The sun had disappeared behind the city's towering skyscrapers, leaving the streets bathed in the orange glow of streetlights. Michigan Avenue was flooded with a sea of people, all moving with purpose. Among them, Donald Trump, wrapped in a long navy blue coat, walked at a steady pace, taking in the city's energy. His meetings for the day were over, and he had decided to clear his mind with a walk. But as he moved forward, something caught his eye. At the corner of a building, huddled beneath a worn and tattered blanket, sat a woman in front of her. A cardboard sign read, "Veteran in need, please help." Trump's steps slowed. Everyone was walking past her, ignoring her. But he stopped. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The woman looked up as she noticed the tall man approaching. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her tired eyes reflected years of struggle. Trump knelt slightly and spoke gently. "Hello, what's your name?" The woman hesitated. No one had asked her that in days. "Teresa," she replied in a trembling voice. "Teresa Hensley." Trump nodded. "Teresa, you're a veteran, aren't you?" She looked down and slowly nodded. Double quotes, "Yes. I served in the army for 12 years. I was in Afghanistan and Iraq. I got injured on duty and was discharged. But life after that wasn't easy." Trump listened carefully. "What happened next?" he asked. Teresa's eyes drifted downward. "The war ended, but for me, it never really did. I couldn't find a job. My medical bills piled up. Eventually, my landlord evicted me. At first, I stayed in shelters, then the streets." Trump sighed. A woman who had given 12 years to her country now sat forgotten on a cold sidewalk. He couldn't just walk away without hesitation. He took out his phone and dialed a number. His assistant, Margaret. "Margaret. Also, get a doctor there immediately. This is urgent." Margaret, knowing Trump's tone meant business, responded quickly. "Right away, Mr. Trump." As he hung up, Teresa looked at him in disbelief. "Why are you doing this?" she asked hesitantly. Trump gave a small smile. "Because someone should have done this a long time ago." Teresa lowered her head. It had been years since someone had cared. Meanwhile, Trump walked over to a street vendor and bought a steaming bowl of soup and a sandwich. "Eat first," he said softly. She hesitated, then took it. The warmth spread through her cold fingers as she slowly began to eat. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up next to them. A well-dressed driver stepped out, opening the door. Trump looked at her. "Come on, Teresa. This is no longer your place." She hesitated. Could this really be happening? Then, she took his hand and stepped into the car. When they arrived at the hotel, everything was already arranged. Margaret had worked fast. Teresa was taken to a luxurious suite. A hot shower, fresh clothes, and a warm bed awaited her. A doctor arrived shortly after, checking her health and prescribing necessary medications. Meanwhile, Trump made one more phone call to Veterans United Support Services, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping homeless veterans rebuild their lives. An hour later, Lisa, one of their representatives, arrived and sat beside Teresa. "Teresa," Lisa said gently, "you're not alone anymore. We're going to help you find housing, job training, and everything else you need to start over." Teresa, overwhelmed with emotion, couldn't hold back her tears. She turned to Trump, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Trump, I don't even know how to thank you." Trump stepped forward with a kind expression. "You don't need to thank me, Teresa, but promise me one thing." Teresa wiped her tears and looked at him. "What is it?" Trump smiled. "One day, help someone else the way I helped you." She took a deep breath and nodded. "I promise." 1 week later, Teresa sat in her new home, looking out the window. She had a bed, a roof, a second chance. That night, her phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. "Mr. Trump, Teresa just sent this. For the first time, I feel hope, but I'm still afraid. Trump read the message and simply smiled. She's going to be just fine. And that night, for the first time in years, Teresa fell asleep not under a torn blanket, but in a real bed with real hope for the future. What about you? Do you believe one act of kindness can change a life? If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories.